First off, hi and everyone here. Morning, afternoon, evening. I'm Garrett Model. I'm on the product marketing team here at Mapbox. Today's session, this Ask Me Anything session, is meant to be an interactive experience between our customers, our developer community, our partners, with some of our key product managers for the navigation and logistics organization. Think of this as a good back and forth mechanism of asking us any questions, telling us about any specific feedback that you have on our solutions, maybe giving us your point of view on how you're utilizing our tools in your applications. Also give us feedback on maybe some new features that you're asking for. So think of it again as a very open discussion session. This is not presentation led, and we ultimately can get the feedback into the product's hands, into engineering's hands, and deliver value back to you guys, our customers. So to start this off, I'm going to do a quick roundtable here. We're joined by Shrey, Ryan, and Amr. I'm going to have each one of you guys maybe do a quick introduction on all of you guys selves. So I'm going to start this off. How about Shrey? Shrey, can you give us a quick introduction?
Thanks, Garrett. Yeah, Shrey here, also in the Bay Area, looking outside the window. I can see the clouds and the rain. So very interesting backdrop here. I'm a product manager at Mapbox navigation team, mostly looking at server side capabilities for navigation, things like directions API. You get routes from point A to point B, including ETAs, traffic, congestion. And one of the focus areas for the team I work with is EV. So really passionate about that, and looking forward to hearing what's top of mind for this group.
Sounds great.
I'll pass it over to Ryan.
Hi, cool. Hey, I'm Ryan Leidig. I am the product manager for 3 of our logistics products. So the Matrix API, the optimization API, both in its current state, as well as we have open public beta right now. So if you want to sign up to try the new one, totally just go onto the documentation page, and I will be the one responding to your email saying you now are signed up for optimization beta, and also the isochrones API. So I am in Denver, Colorado, because I have to be different and painful for all these people and screw with their time zones. And I've been with the company for a little over 6 months, and really glad to be here and really interested to hear how you're using my products.
And last but not least, Amr.
Yes, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Amr, and I am the product manager of the Nav SDK team for both iOS and Android. So at the end of the day, I basically take the products that both Shrey and Ryan build respectively, and I expose them through the SDK so that once you guys download it and you start actually building out your application, a lot of the things that these guys do, you can actually check it out through the navigation SDK itself. The SDK primarily provides guidance and routing, and so that's what we do, and then everything else that comes through the SDK is upstream from us. So, and I've been with the company for about 1.5 years. Thank you.
Thanks, Amr. As I said, today's session is not presentation led. This is an Ask Me Anything hour. So feel free to ping any burning questions that you'd like to talk to our PMs. We'll give a quick pause, look in the chat. Is there anything that's top of mind? Anyone that wants to jump in? If not, I can maybe run us off with some questions ourselves. Amr and Ryan both recently had some releases in this last quarter. We highlighted them at the keynote session by Will White. So hopefully you guys were all able to listen really quickly to some of these new features. Maybe Ryan, do you want to start us off with talking about Matrix API and how the quick update that was just recently released?
Sure, yeah, happy to. So Matrix, and I'll start from the beginning. Operations research is really where we sit specifically with the Matrix, and one of the entering arguments is you need to get for the traveling salesman problem, which essentially says what's the shortest distance to send one person to go and make multiple different stops and in the shortest amount of route or shortest time. And so first thing you do is you need to get a list of distances between all the points, that both origins, destinations, and in between points. And that's what Matrix does. You give it a list of points that you're departing from, a list of points you want to go to, and it gives the distance between two, so you can feed them into whatever optimization algorithm you want to use, whether it's ours, which I obviously prefer because I have a fondness for mine, or anyone else's. There's so many bespoke optimization engines out there that people have built, and that every time I get to dig into one, I learn something new and something people take in consideration as they didn't know. But one of the things that we see with our customers is Matrix was for a very long time a very commoditized product. Anyone who had a geospatial background can go and say, hey, give me this, I'll give you a list of distances or list of times between all of those. We are taking the strategy that there is much more to be offered within the Matrix API product than just a list of distances, because when I would go and look at some of these bespoke optimization engines, I got to see a lot of features internal to them that were making up for deficiencies that the Matrix wasn't providing them. And the big ones we were looking at is a lot of our customers use their Matrix to optimize routing for delivery for the next day planning. We call it in general the planning use case. So pretty much like my phone company, they get a list of places they need to go to make repairs, and at the end of the day they take all those locations and they feed them into Matrix. Matrix spits out the distances between all of those, and then they put it into their optimization engine, so they can do, when their technicians show up the next morning, they can go and get in their trucks and they can see, okay, here's the routes I need to take for the next day. Our Matrix is just giving distances and times using live traffic, but traffic, we all know, changes. Most of us live in cities. We could tell you the difference in traffic when they were doing the planning at midnight was a typical time that they close off the next day's orders at midnight. They would run their optimization engine shortly after, so that when people showed up at 6 o'clock to go to work, get in the trucks and go to work, they would have a list of places they were going. And a lot of our customers were buying third-party traffic data and building little features into their optimization engine to try to compensate for, we're optimizing in the middle of the night when there's no traffic, and our technicians are leaving at the beginning of morning rush hour when there's lots and lots of traffic. So one of the first things that we saw, this is something that our customers were putting extra calories in, and we took a look and said, Mapbox has a bespoke proprietary 90 days of traffic history off the, I think, Amir, correct me if I'm wrong, 600 million separate devices that are providing telemetry.
We collect about 300 million weekly miles or daily miles.
That's
so
it's
yeah.
Thanks. So 300 daily miles, all this traffic data. So we have it, we can say, okay, this is what historical traffic is for noon on a Tuesday. And that level of granularity, so that when they were doing these planning, they could plan their routes around what traffic was predicted based on the Mapbox proprietary traffic data that we collect off of our SDKs and all their telemetry items. So the first thing that we've looked at, it because we had such high customer demand, and we released this on September 30th, was putting in a depart at feature. And the depart at feature is exactly that. You can go in the night before or a week before. We have different customers who do have different planning requirements. Some even are a month before that, because they need to schedule very specific. If you have, I'm sensitive to this because I have one out behind my house right now. If you need like a big people lift that you only have one of them and multiple places, that people lift is scheduled way in advance. So they're doing their planning, but they're getting better information because they have the traffic when they depart at, and they don't have to try to buy third-party data, integrate it into their own system. It just comes with the with the matrix output. And we're starting to, we've got a, I'm product manager. I have a roadmap and a pipeline and a backlog. And there's a bunch of features we're coming out with. A lot of it, with Shrey and I, we're tied at the hip because my APIs use his APIs and vice versa for a lot of things. But we're trying to put Depart Ad is the first feature we're rolling out with Matrix. We're trying to make it more of a value add and put more constraints in the data that you immediately get out, rather than having to try to make these workarounds in your optimization engine.
Very, very cool, Ryan. Thanks for giving us a great description of what came out of this last release for Matrix API. We do got some questions here inside the chat, so I want to highlight some of these. I think they're directed mostly towards Amr here. Let's start this off. You ready to go? Did Mapbox SDK turn-by-turn navigation's new update change in something? Can you talk a little bit more detail about the turn-by-turn update, please?
Yeah, so I did provide a short answer, but we have not changed the fundamentals of the turn-by-turn. We still provide the banner notifications as you approach a maneuver point, and then we also provide the guidance before that. So my question was, is there anything specific that you may have seen that caused you to see that this looks or feels different from what it is before? Some of the routing, however, could have been done by the Nav API team, and if that's the case, then certainly I would love Shrey to put in his 2 cents there.
Do you have any added value there, Shrey?
More recently, so the difference between routing API and SDKs, as you can imagine, SDKs are more like point in time. It gets released and shipped and gets seeded into clients' applications. You guys are building every day. On the API side, it's more of a continuous improvement. So if I can think about the updates what happened in the last maybe 3 to 6 months, so it's primarily around improving the routes and ETAs. So we provide more and more customizations for our users. People come to Mapbox for like more flexible customizations, what they don't get in general purpose consumer apps. So things like, hey, my vehicle is big. It has like high vertical clearance. I cannot go through bridges which are like high in like low in clearance. So we've supported and enriched the data in United States specifically for specifying your vehicle can specify vehicle dimensions, heights, and weights, and we can route you through the appropriate roads which to allow you to go through. Other things like more customization. People have either permits or possibility to drive on high occupancy lanes, HOV lanes. So you can specify a routing engine. Hey, give me lanes with routes which go through those HOV lanes, which makes my drive easier and more comfortable with, which typically you would not always get with consumer nav applications, depending on what you use. These are 2 I can think of, and there's tons of things which is in store, especially around guidance. We know just routes are not the entire experience. So we know a navigation experience also means how well you hear the guidance in your ears, how does it sound, the voice, the language. So we are investing a lot. This particular quarter, we're going to expand from 40 current languages, what we support, to 60 plus languages. And these would also cover some of the cases where the street names are very difficult to pronounce. We're going to introduce more and more of phoneme supports, where we'll be able to handle like really difficult like street names. Like, hey, maybe one thing I can recall from recent customer conversation, like Champs-Élysées in France, in Paris. So how do you say those, and how does it sound natively to different people who speak different languages? So a lot of updates coming and already rolling out in server side and in language. So look out for the docs updates.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Yes, I have a follow-up question on the navigation. So my name is Everest Galama, and I work for Volkswagen, and I have used your turn-by-turn navigation quite maybe around like 2 years ago. So maybe my comment won't be as accurate, but the problem that we had was the routing itself. So we developed an application and we deployed it to internal people, and the map rendering is very nice, but the problem was that the routing itself. I mean, it might not be fair to say, but they always compare it on how Waze and Google does routing. but I would like to ask, how has that improved since then? And what are things in the future that they're looking into to be at least, or how does it benchmark with those guys like Google or Waze?
Maybe I can take this a bit. So we'd love to work with you, first of all. At Mapbox terms, I mean, the timelines are typically not in years. It's typically, we say in months. So our updates and frequency of like how we scale our innovation is pretty fast, what I have seen across teams. So that the underlying piece is the data. So I think there's another question also, like how do you get the data and how do you like make it fresh and correct all the time? So that is the foundational, let's say, competitive advantage. And the Mapbox invests a lot. When you talk about data, we have different sources which sit on top of the basic map layers, what we get from, let's say, OpenStreetMaps, right? But we add tons and tons of proprietary layers on top of it. So in the last location telemetry, what Ryan was alluding to, the one area we get really high rich data set is coming from our telemetry devices, which are our Mapbox products used by applications at global scale. So in the last 2-3 years, we have more than 4x our telemetry coverage. So that means we have 4x more devices, more applications out there in the market in the hands of our customers. So those are sending us really rich telemetry data that informs many data layers inside Mapbox. So one of them, as you can imagine, is the traffic and the ETAs. So progressively over last 3 years, the quality of our ETA and traffic has benchmarked. We do internal benchmarking, and it is at par in major markets, which we can call them as North America, US, Canada, Western Europe, UK. We benchmark on a daily basis, even sometimes an hourly basis, how we do fare within our internal standards and how we benchmark with these other routing providers, what you mentioned right now. So more often than not, in the global markets, we are super competitive. And there are gaps in certain areas, specifically when you talk about APACs and other regions where we still are trying to improve our data layers. The other piece about around we talk about telemetry, but there's also other layers, which is about visions and camera. This is something which we have enabled in last 2 years. So we process about 15 million signs in the last year, which is coming purely from street side imagery and camera detections. So things like if you have street images from showing you a sign on the board on the street where there is a street sign saying there is a no U-turn allowed, there is no right turn allowed, there are turn restrictions, we're able to detect all of those. And in the last year, there were 15 million of those detections. And you can imagine that helps the routing engine makes the right choice, whether you can take this particular road or you cannot take that. And more last with the Nav SDK updates and more proliferation of those endpoints of SDKs and client applications using navigation engines from Mapbox. We now also get user feedback. We are plugged in on real-time user feedbacks, what we get, and these can be around navigation, search, maps, anything. So I am looking at my screen because I have these stats here. So we get roughly around 300,000 user feedbacks each month, and those get fed into our daily corrections pipeline, and it fixes our data layers at search, at navigation, at maps. Everything is happening on a daily basis. So a lot has progressed. I would encourage you to work with us and give us take another spin.
Okay, thanks for the feedback. Just a follow-up question. Do you cover navigation in China, or is there such restriction in some areas?
So right now, I'll go ahead and take that. So right now, we don't do it in China. I think at some point in the past, there was some effort that was in China, but we had stopped that. A lot of it is, as what you point out, there is some a lot of competitive, but also restrictions from the Chinese government itself.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think. Oh, one more question. The accuracy of the street names, are those something that is like crowdsourced, or I mean this might not be accurate, but a lot of the problem was that some of the street names were not accurate.
For a particular region or just in general?
In general, like in the US, in the Bay Area, there was like a couple streets we're in. It's still like, I think, using an old name. And we were asked that I think it has to be updated using OpenStreet, or I'm not sure where the source is.
There is a feedback mechanism which is directly to Mapbox, which is Mapbox contribute. I think I should be able to find a link, and you can directly provide your feedback if there is some like road names you need to pronounce differently, or the names look a little off. This is directly plugged into our corrections pipeline, so there are people looking into it like on a daily basis. Let me find that link for you.
Okay, so let's say if we use your SDK and you find some inaccuracies, we contact you and let you know, right? Is that the right process to say it, or?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, start with contribute. That would be the first way. And if you have, and if you are one of the customers who are on, let's say, on support plan, you can obviously reach out to your direct point of contact, and we'll be happy to work directly.
All right.
Thank
you so much.
Just to add to that, we are also just releasing what we call the Mapbox Copilot, which is another way of providing feedback right through the application. And so we've just released that with the current v2.9 on Android. And so if you are utilizing the very latest one, you can enable the Copilot and provide feedback right through that. So you don't have to get out of the application into contribute or another site to submit it, information.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for your answers.
We can go back to the chat. I think we've got some other questions in here. This last one, what are the steps to have it enabled by a car brand on their car computer, whether it's a Porsche or Tesla? I think we're asking specifically for a Tesla, but if you guys have any thoughts here on how to address this.
So that's a tricky one. It's because we are fundamentally a business to developer driven company, and we do not have B2C consumer applications as part of our strategy. Really, we are doing a lot. I mean, you saw Toyota earlier today. We're doing it with BMW. Our products are being used as the onboard navigation system, and they are it's part of an OEM build it from the ground type deal. So we do not support just a general, consumer use case, and that's on purpose because of all, really a lot of the value that Mapbox brings compared to the other geospatial providers is the ability to do customization, and a lot of, especially our automotive customers, are very, very sensitive to their branding and how they are seen. And we're the only people who can really build something that is, blends into the interior of a BMW or a Toyota, and it takes all their branding and their user experience. Because I'm, as a former owner of both types of cars, I would say, automobile manufacturers really, really understand their user experience, and they want to integrate it into ours. So we can, it's not something you can just say, hey, I want to use Mapbox on my Tesla. Now that might change sometime in the future. Tesla, I do occasionally see them using me as Paygo, and they might be, poking around, but it's not something that we offer. And I'm going to put a link in the chat for you. Give me just a second. That has all kinds of guides.
There's a couple questions in here about where to find the libraries. Is there a direction?
Yeah, this is also something Chris put out earlier today. Hold on. Here we go. Okay, just a second. So Chris, who's our head of developer relations, put this together. And actually, today's the first time I saw about it, and it's brilliant. This is kind of like how to do everything and where everything is located. So and Garrett, maybe this is something, talk with Chris, we might want to put on our docs page, but it will get you started in the right spot.
Yeah, I think we're going to add this I believe it goes live on Monday. So
Oh, cool. Okay. You get to see it first then. And,
Well,
and I won't tell Chris that I released it to the public before.
no. It's fine. Everyone gets a peek behind the curtain, right? That's good
Yeah.
stuff. There was a question here is like, what's the best option to get app maps on your car navigation, CarPlay, or Android Auto? Any initial thoughts there for the group?
So in the Android Auto, we could certainly work on that. If we've released the documentation for Android Auto, so there are probably information in there on integrating the maps to that. I'd have to get back on the CarPlay because that's a little bit more of a closed system controlled by Apple, but certainly on Android Auto, we can go ahead and support that. And did you just post something here for Android Auto? If not,
I posted docs to both of the Android Auto and the iOS.
Okay.
CarPlay.
Let me just repost that.
It's a team effort. Trying to help you guys out as you're answering questions.
Yeah, so somebody said many of our customers want to see our maps in their vehicle. That's correct. So the Nav SDK actually has two components to it today. There is the Maps SDK, that's actually part of it. The current version is V10. We're going to be expanding that into the V11 coming into the first half of 2023. And then with that is the Nav SDK. So while you can certainly utilize the navigation, the Mapbox maps, there is no you're not bound to it. So you can go ahead and use your own maps data. In fact, many customers do, and then they just go ahead and use the navigation SDK to go ahead and provide the routing on top of that map. So that's a perfectly legitimate exercise for you to perform. Same thing with search, by the way, just to expand that. Lots of companies have their own search, whether they use like a Yelp or some other third-party search product that integrates with our Nav SDK, and that's fine as well. We do have a roadmap to integrate search along with the Maps SDK all into a single Nav SDK. That is that's our roadmap for 2023. But again, even with that new SDK that's going to come out probably sometime in the second half of 2023, you are still free to continue to use your own search and your own maps along with our Nav SDK routing.
I think we have a feature request that just came in as the last question here. No chance of a web app then. I use a better route planner, which is a web app. Would love to see them use Mapbox.
If you're referring to as a web interface where you can test out routing, we do have playgrounds at Mapbox and demo areas, which are all web based. I'll paste the link for Directions API, which is routing API. If you're referring to a route planner from, let's say, ABRP, so we have a playground, which, by the way, more like in last few days, we launched our EV routing as part of that playground. So that's available for any customers to test out. Play with the different vehicle settings, what you can customize. Pretty much it's infinitely customizable for any kind of a vehicle of your choice. It does come with some presets, so you can test out, and that will give you a certain level of, let's say, web app testing before you can start testing, playing with our APIs and integrating into our products. So really good to just get your feet wet. And link coming soon.
There's a question that came in around use of maps and search side by side. Is that something that's possibly in development right now, or should we punt that question over to the search org?
So I think they can answer it as well, but one of the driving forces behind full integrations in Nav SDK is making sure that all three of the SDKs work and we're not picking and choosing the different versions. And so as we move forward with that integration process, we need to make sure that before we release any new build, all of the maps and the search and the Nav SDK are working in tandem together. So that is not there today. So for at least the time period, you do have to still worry about whether the two different SDKs are compatible, but that is our plan to improve that in the second half of 2023. This is for Andreas.
Very cool. And as Shrey pointed out, we have the new playground environment for EV. Feel free to check that out at your guys' leisure. It's actually a really neat experience. Shrey, do you want to talk about anything else that's going on in the EV space?
Yeah, and we are super excited and heavily involved with EV customers in the last few months. We are going to we did a private preview launch of EV routing in Q2 of this year. In case you have not checked out, please feel free to go out and sign up if you want to get access to it and test out. Playground is also one avenue. If you need API access, encourage you to sign up and get full access to all the controls and knobs. In the next half of the year, we'll be launching EV routing in public beta. This would have the focus for that would be getting more user preferences into our routing engine, where different users want to have an EV trip planning experience, which could be very much about, hey, I want to get to my station fast, my stops faster. I want to get to my destination in a leisured manner, where I want to take a big break on a stop. So we'll be able to support different kind of customizations, filter preferences, where you need charge, which are your preferred providers, and continue to improve on the data coverage, which is top of mind for a lot of our customers. Like EV routing is one piece which is geared to reduce the range anxiety specifically for people who are still on the fence, like whether to buy an EV, not to buy an EV. The last time I checked, the EV sales, especially in the United States and also globally, were in single digit compared to all kind of vehicles. So there is a big focus on app developers, automakers. How can we make the EV experience, the navigation, as intuitive as possible? So look out for updates on that front.
Sounds great. Thanks for that. There was a question that has to do with Flutter and our support. I know that the teams are working on a release of Flutter, but I don't know if, I guess, Amr, do you have any thoughts on that one?
So currently, I don't believe that we officially support Flutter. There is another community out there of developers who are utilizing Flutter. And so you can always go out there and look to see what the solutions are. There was discussion, I believe, earlier this year in whether Mapbox will be supporting Flutter officially. And I don't know if the jury's still out on that right now. I'd have to do some more investigation.
So I know that it's coming soon. So we kind of pre-briefed on today's keynote that it's coming soon. So I know it's coming out within this next quarter. I just don't have enough information, just enough on it yet to share it with the audiences here. But I do know it's on its way. So get excited, get pumped, and keep your eyes on your alerts. And I know that we just lost Shrey. Shrey is actually delivering another session in parallel to today's Q&A. So if you wanted to learn more about EV, feel free to share those questions over our way and make sure that we address them and send them answers. Thanks for that. So I don't know, maybe Amr, maybe you can tell us a little bit about maybe some of your recent launches. I know you kind of touched on it very highly with Copilot and the drop-in UI. Drop-in UI is really exciting because we get to really help the developer audience just like really have this kind of plug and play solution just get up and running a lot faster. Is there, what's some of the exciting things that you want to highlight there?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And we've been doing a lot of customer interviews recently about our SDK that we have had since the 2.0 version came out in October of 2021. And while the overall feature set and the performance of it has been fairly positive, the one area of concern that a lot of our customers have been telling us is that, hey, it takes a long time to go ahead and actually build out a full end-to-end navigation system. And that is not necessarily our core expertise. We do other things. We deliver packages, or we pick up and drop off people, or whatever the case might be. And so the question behind that is like, well, why is it that we do that? The reason was because we wanted to provide customers with as much customization to allow them to build whatever type of application they want. But I think what we did is we kind of went too far in that direction and allowed them to have as much customization. And the thought to have the drop-in UI is a way to kind of pull some of that back in so that at least the core navigation experience can be done very quickly. And so with the launch of the drop-in UI, basically what you could do on the new 2.x is you could grab certain components of the navigation experience, kind of thread them together, and you can have a full end-to-end navigation experience within just a couple of hours. Now, this is a basic navigation experience. It will get you what you want from point A to point B. And then on top of that, if you'd like to do your customization, then you're free to do as much as you want. And so we've taken this concept and we're like, okay, it's certainly optimized for the automotive experience. What about other experiences such as EVs or bicycles or hiking? And so now the thought behind it is, as we are looking at new drop-in UI components and profiles, we're going to go ahead and start looking at these other types of opportunities and saying, well, what kind of navigation experience best represents the use cases for any of those? And that is what we have as part of our roadmap into 2023. The automotive one is already out there. You can use it today. And then we're going to start bringing in more in the next year.
Very cool. We do have a follow-up question around the data and how it's being hosted is it by Mapbox or is it self-hosted? Is there an answer you can supply the team here?
The data.
Yeah, in the chat. The question is, it depends on the use case. We do have outside data that is hosted by the customer, and we have outside data that we've looked at it and said, this is something we can host ourselves. So it's when you're starting to talk at that level of granularity, we start to look into very specific use cases around things. I'll use the example, one of our customers has a very specific traffic provider they want us to use. They don't want us to use our own data, and we don't host it, but we use a outside API added to our solution. And so when they do their routing, they use this third-party traffic data that they have specified.
Maybe it'd be a good point here, Balmer. Maybe you can talk a little bit about AB Courier and how they were one of our customers that started utilizing the tool.
Drop-in UI specifically, right?
Yeah.
So we typically launch with a number of beta customers just to make sure that we have fleshed out all of the use cases and some of the documentation issues. And so AB Courier, who is a trucking company based in Toronto, Canada, we've been talking with them for a while. They were using our 1.x. And they were looking to migrate over to the 2.x because of the additional features, and they also needed some of the Matrix backend stuff to optimize their trucking services. And so our engineer, who had been championing the drop-in UI, worked with their one engineer, Android engineer out in India for about a month. And so a couple of things happened. One is that they were actually able to go out and launch a brand new application in less than 3.5 weeks to their about 40 or 50 beta trucks that they had as part of their beta release. And then within 3 weeks of that, they went ahead and launched it to all 200. And they've had a tremendous amount of success from what they tell us in terms of how their drivers are actually integrating, how their drivers are utilizing the new app, and how much easier it's become versus the more code-developed application that they had with their previous build. And so if we take that as a measuring stick, we believe that a couple of things can happen. One, the time to development and time to market can significantly increase. We were looking somewhere about 30 to 40% just with AB Courier. We believe that that's probably going to be an average. Some companies might have a little bit less because of a lot more customization. Other companies might have more, like 60, 70%. That also means a faster time to market, which means that they can go ahead and ramp up a lot more quickly. And so what we want to do is, as we continue to build out these new profiles I was talking about, such as whether it's EV or hiking or biking, we like to continue having these conversations with the customer bases in those business areas, so that when we go ahead and show them what the UI looks like, we can get that immediate feedback and saying, this is the stuff that works for us, this is what doesn't work, and this is where you can go ahead and optimize your drop-in UI components. And so it was a very good start. A second company, NVIDIA, actually used the drop-in UI for one of their keynote addresses just a couple of months ago, and that went very well as well. So we've started off pretty strong, and we hope to continue on that momentum moving forward.
Yeah, that was really, it was really exciting to see, our customers, really seeing direct value immediately from, leveraging the new drop-in UI environment. I feel like I want to just highlight that it's, they're now able to focus in on higher value initiatives. They're able to more focus in on customizations that specifically to their use cases. They can create better personalization efforts. And it's all because this, tool and functionality that you just released gets the value right out of the box. And now let's make really big impact with where we want to actually spend the time. So that's really great. The other thing that you just recently released, and then you kind of highlighted, talked about it again, was kind of the Copilot initiative. And, this feedback mechanism that you're, really providing our clients today, back in Mapbox as a way of doing in-session recordings. Maybe you can talk a little bit about Copilot a little bit to the audience.
Yeah, so Copilot has been something that we've been working on for some time internally, because we have our own internal application that kind of initiated this whole thing. And that is, if we drive around with our test application, how do we find data out there that is missing or wrong and get that information back to our data team so that they can quickly turn around and make sure that it's correct? And now this is not just an internal Mapbox issue. This is actually a customer issue, because you guys are finding issues all the time, right? No one's perfect out there, even the Googles and Apples of the world. And so we have the contribute, which, we discussed earlier, but the contribute is like this on mapbox.com/contribute, and it's not through the application. And so what Copilot is integrated inside of the newest Nav SDK 2.9, and then it will continue. A customer does have to actually enable it. It's not enabled by itself. But what it allows your customers, your drivers to do is it does both manual feedback and as well as automatic feedback. So automatic feedback is that we go ahead and get the traces as you guys are driving around. And if there is a problem, we can go back and we can look at that entire route and we can say, okay, this is where the problems occurred. And we can grab the logs from that. And then there's the manual side, the user behavior side of it. So there's two ways of doing that. One is right through it, the in-app while you're driving. There are certain icons and saying, well, this is wrong, this is updated, very similar to what you might see today with Waze or some of the others. And then there's the post-drive feedback as well, saying, hey, overall, was your route good? Was it bad? Were there areas of problems that you wanted to highlight? And then that information, as it's retrieved by our data team, we go back and we go ahead and we have a separate team that goes and validates it. And so there was a question earlier saying, well, why can't we just fix the data ourselves? And one of that is because of a bunch of false positives. We don't go ahead and fix the data immediately either. Once there's a feedback coming back, we have to go out and make sure that we can go ahead and correlate that information with what we see either on the road or in the field. And so with Contribute and now with the Copilot, we believe that the turnaround time for improving data is really going to start to accelerate as more and more customers start enabling the Copilot feature and providing Mapbox with that information so that it can benefit all customers out there that are using our SDK products.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I mean, I can see, a direct correlation to improved user experience, customer experience. You can see a direct relation to how roadmaps are designed and crafted for future iterations of product success. So that's really exciting that you brought this to the table. Amr. I'm really excited to see it continue to grow and thrive with our clients. I think there was a question in the chat that was regarding a little bit of our fleet solutions. Ryan, do you have any?
Yeah, we could talk about this. And thank you for this question, because it's one of those that I'm struggling with as a product manager to really we have a lot of really, really great tools and products. Fleet is the first time that we're kind of making them all work together. And it's a difficult thing. So to answer your question, it's going to be hosted. It's essentially you would access it through a web portal. So it'll be hosted on our end, and you just access it through that sort of thing. And if it's a huge deployment, I don't know if you work for Amazon or UPS or DHL or something. So give me a call afterwards. We'll hook you up. But but right now the use cases we're using is for people who are, have the hundreds of vehicles, not thousands of vehicles, and that can be self-hosted. We see, through a web portal or through, a really thin client app is where we're looking at it. And a lot of stuff to make sure I'm ready there. It's right now it's in beta, and it's public beta, and you can go and sign up for it, and we'll get you all set. And we're still kind of, because it's in beta, and it's because it's one of the first times we built a solution rather than just a product. This thing does soup to nuts and has, integrated APIs and SDKs and that sort of thing, is that we are still trying to understand how we bring this to market and how people use it. And we need to have users, to try to test it out and figure where it's at. So right now, as a question, yes, hosted our site. We'd love to have you come test it out, and we'd love to, hear your feedback on how it works and where the efficiencies are, because we do, within my logistics roadmap, we didn't think it was going to be a key thing at the beginning of the year, but it's become more and more obvious that a lot of our customers are asking not just for the tool. We've been very good at selling tools. We need to start selling solutions, and this is our first step in doing that.
So is there an action item there, Ryan? Do we want to?
Yes, I know. There's several action items. And they never end. I've just got, I just wake up every morning, I look at my backlog and just start crying.
It's all good things. All good things, right? So
Seriously.
I think the ask here, though, is like, if you want to get involved and you want to learn a little bit more about it, feel free to connect to us through the landing page. We'll get in touch with you, and we'll go from there. Is that the right approach, Ryan?
Absolutely. And within the tools too, is I've worked for a bunch of companies. The product managers at Mapbox are a lot more hands-on with the customers than a lot of places I've worked. And if I don't respond to every email I get, I absolutely read them. I will say 20% of my time is direct interaction with our users, trying to figure out, how to solve their problems, or if we could solve their problems. And so if you sign up and we get you started on the public beta, public preview, then you will have someone on the other end answering your emails.
Yeah, that is just such a great value positions that we provide our customers today, working directly with our customers to develop, roadmaps that matter, solutions that matter. So, keep those ideas coming. And again, as Ryan pointed out, we are very hands-on with our clients, and we like to incorporate their feedback into every iteration of our solutions that we bring to our customers. We're almost at time, so I do want to make sure that if anyone has any immediate questions that they absolutely want to know, please send them our way. If we don't have the time to address all of them, or we will capture it and respond back afterwards. We have another quick question here. What's the best way to get in touch with the navigation team? Do you guys have an alias? I don't actually know this. This would be actually good. What's the best way for you guys to get information? Is it the contributor?
So I have one for each one of my products. So if and those are on the documentation pages. So if you go specifically to those, you could get in touch with us. You can go, your sales representative is your number one way, because our sales representatives and account managers are rather knowledgeable, and they, a lot of times, especially with the things that Mapbox provides, it might not be entirely clear who is the right person in charge, especially when you're dealing with my logistics stuff, because my logistics stuff is all derivative products, and it's things that, sometimes people, for instance, my personal favorite is Store Finder. When you say, hey, show me all of the T-Mobiles, because they're one of our big Store Finder customers. It's actually Matrix. It's not, we don't have a Store Finder product, but Matrix is what powers it. And then it shows up on the maps. And yeah, thank you, Lisa. So a lot of times, guidance to that, people would think that's a maps product, but it's really not. So I do encourage, while reaching out to individuals is great, going through your salesperson or account manager, or through those links that Lisa just put into the chat. They can guide you to the right people, because sometimes it's not obvious.
Yeah, it's the non-obvious part of it that I will go ahead and highlight again, because we have so many teams within the navigation organization that you might think you're reaching out to the right team, but turns out to be it's a completely different team within the nav org. And so those links that we have there, it'll give you an overview of the navigation, and then reach out to sales. And it's very likely that your issue will probably hit a number of our teams. And so whoever's mostly responsible for it can come back and reach back out to you to address some of your issues or questions.
Yeah, I did just for example, you see the 3 kind of big product managers for navigation. There's 11 more of us. So, and they all have their own products, and it might not be at all obvious who's the right person.
What I heard there, sum that up. You have your go-to account managers, and they are an advocate for you as directly from a business aspect. So reach out to your direct account managers and they will assist. So again, we're almost at time. I'm really excited that we had this session today with all of you, and we hope to host more of these in the future. There will be a survey that's going to be going out post-event, and we do welcome as much feedback as you guys are willing to give. That can be anything from looking for more information to looking for new session content in the future. We really welcome, again, all feedback, any way, shape, or form. Think of it as a direct channel for future sessions, future content, future maybe iterations on our products roadmap and solution sets that we want to bring to market. So, take it as you will. And again, we look forward to talking with you all. At this time, I think we're going to close today's session. And again, thank you all for attending Build with Mapbox, and have a great rest of your days.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.